The trading post smelled of leather and desperation. Margaret Flynn's fingers trembled as she pressed her mother's emerald ring against the wooden counter, the last piece of Ireland she possessed. 3 days without food had left her hollow, her red hair dull beneath the Arizona dust. "I need bread, anything." Her voice cracked like desert clay. The trader barely glanced up. "Ring's fake, lady. Worth nothing." Before Margaret could protest, a shadow filled the doorway. The Apache man, who entered, moved with the silence of smoke, his presence commanding immediate attention. Copper skin stretched over powerful shoulders, black hair falling past his collar, eyes dark as obsidian, scanning the room with warrior's precision. Before we continue this tale of Margaret and the mysterious stranger, I'd love to ask you to take a moment to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on this video. Your support truly matters and motivates us to create more quality stories for you. I'm curious, where are you listening from today? At home? During a commute? Let me know in the comments. "The ring stays with her," he said, his English perfect, but accented with something older. He placed silver coins on the counter. "Give her supplies, enough for 2 weeks." Margaret stared. "I can't accept charity." His gaze fixed on her, and something flickered there. Recognition? Impossible. "This is not charity. This is debt." He gestured to the door. "You will come to Canyon de Chelly. You will cook, mend, teach English to the children, fair trade. I don't know you. I am Neshoba. My people know me. You will be safe." He paused, studying her face with unsettling intensity. "Safer than you are here, alone." The trader snorted. "She's white, Neshoba. Your people won't. My people will do as I say." The quiet authority in his voice ended the discussion. Margaret had no better options. Her husband lay 3 weeks dead from cholera, his debts inherited along with his cruelty. The town offered only brothels or starvation. She followed Neshoba into the blazing afternoon. His horse, a magnificent paint stallion, waited outside. He mounted in one fluid motion, then extended his hand down to her. Margaret hesitated, studying the calluses, the faint scars mapping battles survived. When she took it, his grip was firm but careful, lifting her effortlessly behind him. "Hold on," he commanded. She circled her arms around his waist, feeling the solid muscle beneath his shirt, the steady rhythm of his breathing. They rode for hours through red rock canyons that glowed like embers in the setting sun, past twisted junipers and sage that perfumed the air with something wild and clean. Canyon de Chelly opened before them, like a cathedral, ancient cliff dwellings carved into sandstone walls that soared toward heaven. The Apache camp nestled in the canyon floor, wickiups arranged in careful patterns, cook fires sending smoke spiraling upward. The reception was mixed. Women watched with suspicious eyes as Neshoba dismounted and helped Margaret down. An elderly woman approached, speaking rapid Apache. Neshoba answered calmly, gesturing toward Margaret with what seemed like respect. "This is Grandmother Nayland," he told Margaret. "She will show you where to sleep. Tomorrow, work begins." That night, lying on a bedroll in a small wickiup separate from the others, Margaret stared through the smoke hole at stars so bright they seemed within reach. Exhaustion should have claimed her, but her mind spun with questions. Why had Neshoba helped her? Why did he look at her as if he knew her? Dawn came painted in pink and gold. Margaret emerged to find water already warming on a fire, tools laid out for her use. The work was hard, grinding corn, hauling water from the stream, mending tears in leather and cloth, but there was rhythm to it, purpose. The children watched her with bright curiosity, giggling when she attempted their language. Neshoba appeared and disappeared like a ghost, sometimes gone for days hunting or scouting. When present, he was quiet, observant. But Margaret felt his eyes on her constantly, tracking her movements with an intensity that should have frightened her, but somehow didn't. 3 weeks passed before he spoke to her beyond basic instructions. She was washing clothes at the stream, sleeves rolled up, when he materialized beside her. "You are healing," he observed. Margaret glanced at her hands, no longer trembling, nails no longer ragged. "The work is good. Thank you for—" "Do you remember Canyon Creek?" he interrupted. "10 winters ago?" Her hands stilled in the water. Canyon Creek, the wagon train attack, the terror. She'd been barely 18, traveling west with her missionary parents, when Comanche raiders struck. Apache warriors had driven them off, saved the survivors. There'd been one warrior who'd wrapped his shirt around her shoulders, who'd spoken gently while she shook with shock. "The red hair," Neshoba continued softly. "I never forgot. Like autumn fire. You were crying, but you did not scream. You thanked me in broken Spanish." Margaret's breath caught. "That was you?" "I was young, reckless. I made a promise to myself that day, to find you again. But you disappeared into the white settlements. I searched. I waited." His jaw tightened. "When I saw you in that trading post, I knew the spirits had kept their promise, even if I could not." 10 years, she whispered. "You waited 10 years?" For some things, time means nothing. The air between them thickened, charged. Margaret stood, water dripping from her hands, and faced him fully. In daylight, she could see the man he'd become. No longer the youth who'd given her his shirt, but a chief who carried his people's survival on those powerful shoulders. Scars mapped his chest and arms, each one a story of protection, of sacrifice. "Why did you wait?" Her voice barely carried over the stream's murmur. "Because when I wrapped you in my shirt, you looked at me without fear, without hate. You saw me. Not Apache, not savage. Me." He stepped closer, and Margaret's heart hammered against her ribs. "I wanted to know if that was real, if you were real." "I'm real," she breathed, "and I remember. I asked your name, but you were gone by morning. Neshoba, it means wolf. The wolf who guards." Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, pleasure. "You understand. I'm beginning to." The weeks that followed changed everything and nothing. They moved around each other like dancers learning steps, drawn together by invisible threads. Neshoba taught her to ride properly, his hands correcting her posture, his voice patient. Margaret taught the children English, delighted when Neshoba sat at the back of the group, listening, occasionally offering corrections with the hint of a smile. They talked during long evenings, his stories of Apache history interweaving with her memories of Ireland, of the brutal crossing, of a marriage entered from desperation. He never touched her beyond necessity, but the wanting hung between them like smoke, thick and intoxicating. "My husband hit me," she confessed one night, words tumbling out under the safety of darkness. "When I didn't cook right, when I spoke too much, when I simply existed." Neshoba's silence was profound, dangerous. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the edge of a blade. If he were not already dead, I would kill him slowly. "I'm not property," Margaret said, testing the words, tasting their truth. "I'm a person." "Yes." His response was immediate, fierce. "You are Margaret. You are strong. You are worthy of respect." Tears stung her eyes. "No one has said that to me in years." "Then they are fools who do not deserve to speak your name." But their fragile peace shattered on a morning sharp with coming winter. Riders appeared on the canyon rim, soldiers from Fort Defiance, and with them, a man Margaret recognized with bone-deep horror. Charles Whitmore, her husband's business partner, the man who'd purchased her husband's debts along with his claim on her. "The woman is property," Whitmore's voice echoed off canyon walls. "She owes debts. She comes with me, or we burn this camp." Neshoba stood at the canyon entrance, 30 warriors flanking him, rifles ready. His face could have been carved from the stone cliffs themselves. "The woman is free. She owes you nothing. She's white. She don't belong with savages. She belongs where she chooses." Neshoba's voice dropped, deadly soft. "You have one chance to leave with your life. Choose." The standoff lasted an eternity, measured in heartbeats. Then Whitmore drew his pistol, and chaos erupted. Margaret saw Neshoba move like lightning, throwing himself toward her as shots exploded. They tumbled together behind rocks, his body covering hers, sheltering her from the hail of bullets. The battle was brief but vicious, Apache warriors defending their home with practiced efficiency. When silence fell, Whitmore lay dead, the soldiers retreating in disorder. But Neshoba wasn't moving. "No!" The word ripped from Margaret's throat. She pushed at his weight, found her hands coming away red. "No, no, no, I'm all right," he gasped. But blood soaked his side, a bullet lodged near his ribs. Grandmother Nayland barked orders, but Margaret had already torn fabric for bandages, her hands steady despite her terror. They carried Neshoba to his wickiup, and Margaret refused to leave his side. For 3 days she tended him, cleaned his wound, forced water and medicine past his lips, sang Irish lullabies when fever made him thrash. On the 3rd night, when his fever finally broke, she collapsed beside him, exhausted. She woke to his hand in her hair, fingers gentle against her scalp. "Margaret, you're awake." Relief flooded her. "You scared me. Go slow. You'll hurt yourself." "I'll die before I hurt you." His voice was rough but certain. "I made that promise 10 winters ago." "Neshoba, I waited 10 winters for you," he whispered, eyes burning with intensity that stole her breath. "I will wait 10 more if you need them. But I must tell you, my heart recognized you the moment I saw you in that trading post. It has been yours since Canyon Creek, since you looked at me with kindness when others showed only fear." Margaret's hand trembled as she cupped his face, feeling the heat of his skin, the rough stubble along his jaw. "You don't have to wait anymore." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I see you. Not a chief, not Apache. You, Neshoba, the wolf who guards." She leaned closer, her red hair falling around them like a curtain. "I'm saying I choose to stay. If you'll have me." His hand slid to the back of her neck, drawing her down until their foreheads touched. Together? Together. The kiss was inevitable, necessary as breathing. Gentle despite the hunger behind it, reverent despite the passion. When they broke apart, Both were trembling. "Marry me," Neshoba said. "Apache way, white way, every way that makes you mine and me yours." Yes, the word came easily, right? Yes, his wound kept them from anything more that night. Though Margaret slept curled against his uninjured side, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. In the days that followed, as he healed, their touches grew bolder, his fingers tracing the curve of her jaw, her lips pressed to the pulse at his throat, learning each other in increments, building towards something explosive. The night before their wedding ceremony, Margaret came to his wickiup, wearing the traditional dress grandmother Nayland had made for her, white deerskin decorated with turquoise beads. Neshoba stood when she entered, firelight painting his copper skin gold, desire naked in his eyes. "You are so beautiful," he said hoarsely, "worth every moment of waiting." Margaret moved to him, pulse racing. "Then don't wait anymore." What followed was tender and fierce, patient and desperate. Neshoba treated her like something precious and unbreakable, then like an equal who could match his strength. He whispered words in Apache she didn't understand, but felt in her bones, promises and prayers. She traced every scar with fingers and lips, claiming him as he claimed her. "I waited 10 winters for you," he breathed against her neck as they moved together under starlight, filtering through the smoke hole. "And I would wait 100 more." Margaret pulled him closer, nails digging into his shoulders. "Never wait again. I'm here. I'm yours. Together." "Together," he echoed, and the word was a vow. The ceremony the next morning was simple but profound. They stood before grandmother Nayland and the gathered tribe, hands bound with leather cord painted with symbols of unity. Neshoba spoke promises in Apache and English, his voice carrying across the canyon. Margaret responded with her own vows, voice strong and clear. When they kissed, the tribe erupted in celebration, and Margaret knew she'd finally found home, not in a place, but in the heart of a man who'd waited 10 winters to find her again. The morning after their wedding, Margaret woke to find Neshoba already dressed, strapping on his weapons with practiced efficiency. Panic flared in her chest. "Where are you going?" He turned, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. Part regret, part determination. Scouts reported soldiers massing near Fort Defiance. The officer who escaped yesterday, he's calling for reinforcements. They plan to return. How many? Too many. He crossed to her, cupping her face with both hands. "I need you to do something difficult." Margaret's stomach twisted. "No, whatever you're thinking, listen to me." His thumbs stroked her cheekbones, the gesture unbearably tender. "If I fall, the tribe needs a voice, someone who can speak to both worlds. You won't fall." "Margaret." "No." She gripped his wrists, fierce. "We just found each other. You don't get to leave me now. We fight together or we run together, but you don't leave me behind." Something shifted in his expression. Pride, love, exasperation. "You are the most stubborn woman I have ever known. You married me anyway." "I did." He kissed her, hard and claiming. "Then you ride with me, but you follow my commands without question." "Agreed." "Agreed." They rode out with 20 warriors, leaving the women, children, and elders hidden in the ancient cliff dwellings where soldiers couldn't easily reach them. Grandmother Nayland had protested Margaret's presence, but Neshoba had silenced her with a single look. His wife, his choice. The ambush site was a narrow pass where red rocks rose on both sides like the walls of a cathedral. Neshoba positioned his warriors on the high ground. Margaret beside him with a rifle she'd learned to shoot during the past weeks. "You see that boulder?" He pointed to a massive stone jutting from the cliff face. "If shooting starts, you get behind it. You protect yourself first. And leave you exposed? I am a warrior. This is what I do." He caught her chin, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Promise me, Margaret, you survive. Whatever happens, you survive." The weight of his words pressed against her chest. "Only if you promise the same. I promise to fight like hell." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "That's the best I can give you." The soldiers came at noon, 50 strong, led by a captain with cold eyes and a reputation for brutality against Apache. They rode into the pass with weapons drawn. Confident in their numbers, Neshoba let them get halfway through before he stood, tall and proud against the sky. "You trespass on Apache land," he called down, his voice echoing. "Turn back now. There will be no second warning." The captain sneered. "I'm here for the white woman you're holding captive. Hand her over, and we'll consider letting you savages live." Margaret stepped up beside Neshoba before he could stop her. "I'm not a captive. I'm his wife, and you're the one who needs to turn back." Shock rippled through the soldiers. The captain's face purpled with rage. "You married a savage? You're a traitor to your race." "I married a man," Margaret shot back. "A better man than any of you will ever be." "Take them!" The captain roared. Chaos erupted. Apache rifles cracked from the high ground, soldiers returning fire in disorder. Neshoba moved like a force of nature, his shots precise, deadly. Margaret fired until her ears rang, her training taking over, hitting 2 soldiers who tried to flank their position. But there were too many. The soldiers pushed forward, using their dead horses as cover, advancing up the rocks. Margaret's rifle clicked empty, and before she could reload, a soldier appeared over the ridge, pistol aimed at Neshoba's back. She didn't think, just grabbed a rock and swung with all her strength. The soldier went down, but 2 more replaced him. Neshoba spun, knife flashing, taking down one. The other grabbed Margaret, hauling her toward the edge. "Drop your weapons or she dies," the soldier screamed. Neshoba froze, every line of his body vibrating with lethal intent. His eyes met Margaret's, and she saw the calculation there, weighing her life against his people's survival. She wouldn't let him make that choice. Margaret drove her elbow into the soldier's throat, twisted in his grip, and they both went over the edge. The fall was short but brutal, both of them hitting the rocky slope and tumbling. Pain exploded through Margaret's body as she crashed into a juniper tree that stopped her descent. The soldier wasn't as lucky. He kept falling, screaming until he hit the canyon floor with a sickening crunch. "Margaret!" Neshoba's roar echoed off the rocks. She tried to respond, but agony lanced through her ribs, stealing her breath. Above, the battle still raged. She had to move, had to get back up there. Using the juniper for support, each handhold sent fresh waves of pain through her body, but she kept moving, kept climbing toward the sound of gunfire. When she finally pulled herself over the ridge, the battle had shifted. The soldiers were retreating, dragging their wounded, the captain among them. Neshoba stood at the edge, bow drawn, ready to put an arrow through the captain's back. His face was a mask of cold fury, finger trembling on the bowstring. "Neshoba!" Margaret's voice came out ragged. "Don't." He didn't lower the bow. "He would have taken you, killed you." But he didn't. She stumbled toward him, pain making her vision swim. "Don't become what they think you are. Don't kill a fleeing man, not for me. The tension in his shoulders was unbearable. Then, slowly, he lowered the bow. The captain and his men disappeared around the bend, and Neshoba turned to her. What he saw made him go pale. In 2 strides he reached her, catching her as her legs gave out. "You're hurt. God, Margaret, you're covered in blood." "Most of it's not mine," she tried to joke, but the world was tilting sideways. He carried her back to camp, refusing to let anyone else touch her. Grandmother Nayland examined her with gentle, efficient hands, pronouncing her ribs cracked, but not broken. Her shoulder dislocated, but fixable. The old woman set the shoulder with one sharp movement that made Margaret scream, then wrapped her ribs tight. That night, Neshoba sat beside their bedroll, silent, his hand holding hers with crushing intensity. "You could have died," he finally said. "When you went over that edge, His voice broke. "I felt my heart stop. 10 winters I waited for you, and I almost lost you in minutes. But you didn't." Margaret squeezed his hand with what strength she had. "We're both here, together. You saved my life. That soldier would have killed me. And you've saved mine a dozen times over." She pulled him down beside her, careful of her injuries. "That's what together means. We protect each other." He buried his face in her hair, and she felt the tremor run through him. Reaction, delayed shock, the weight of leadership and love colliding. Margaret held him as best she could, one-armed and aching, while he finally let himself shake apart and then piece himself back together. "I love you," he whispered against her skin. "More than is wise, more than is safe." "Good." She kissed his temple. "Love me anyway. I'm not going anywhere." The soldiers didn't return. Word spread through the territory. The Apache chief and his red-haired wife, who fought like a warrior. Some called them legend. Others called them trouble. Margaret called it survival. Spring arrived with a vengeance of green. Margaret's ribs had healed, though they ached when storms rolled in. She'd learned to read that ache like a calendar, predicting rain before the clouds gathered. The tribe had come to rely on her weather predictions, laughing when she blamed it on her Irish bones. She stood in her garden, a hybrid creation mixing Apache corn with Irish potatoes and Scottish herbs she'd traded for at the fort. He had built her a greenhouse of sorts, stretching canvas over wooden frames to extend the growing season. It was one of many small kindnesses he showed daily. A wildflower left on her pillow, fresh meat from his hunts, the way he braided her hair when her shoulder hurt too much to lift her arms. "Grandmother Nayland wants to see us," Neshoba said, appearing behind her with that uncanny silence she'd never quite gotten used to. His arms circled her waist, hands settling on her belly with proprietary warmth. "She says it's important." Margaret leaned back against his chest, savoring the moment. These peaceful days felt precious, fragile. 3 months since the battle, and scouts reported increased military activity in the territory. It was only a matter of time before trouble found them again. Grandmother Nayland's wickiup smelled of sage and something sweeter, herbs Margaret had learned to recognize. The old woman gestured for them to sit, her dark eyes studying Margaret with unsettling intensity. "You are with child," she said flatly. Margaret's breath stopped. "What?" "2 moons, maybe 3. I can see it, feel it." Grandmother Nayland's weathered hand reached out, hovering over Margaret's belly. "A strong spirit, stubborn like both of you." Neshoba's hand found Margaret's, gripping tight. "Are you certain?" "I have delivered more babies than you have seen summers, grandson. I am certain. Margaret's mind reeled. A child. Their child. The timing couldn't be worse. Threats on all sides. Their future uncertain. But looking at Neshoba's face, seeing the wonder there, mixed with fierce protectiveness, she felt something shift in her chest. "We're going to have a baby," she whispered. Yes, his voice was rough with emotion. He pulled her close, careful, reverent. "Yes, we are." That night, lying in their wickiup, with Neshoba's hand spread over her still flat belly, Margaret let herself imagine it. A child with her red hair and his dark eyes. Or his black hair and her green eyes. Teaching them both languages, both cultures, both worlds. "They'll face hardship," she said quietly. "Neither world will fully accept them. Then we teach them to be strong enough that it doesn't matter." Neshoba's lips brushed her temple. "We teach them they are enough, exactly as they are. Apache and Irish, both, neither, everything." You make it sound simple. It won't be, but we'll face it together like everything else. The peace lasted 2 more weeks. Margaret was teaching the children English, her belly barely showing beneath her loose dress, when a young warrior burst into camp. Riders, white men, not soldiers. Neshoba materialized from somewhere, rifle in hand. "How many?" "3. One carries a white flag." "A parley, then." Neshoba's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Bring them to the council circle. Watch them." The men who rode in were traders Margaret recognized from various posts. The leader. A grizzled man named Samuel Cooper, dismounted with hands clearly visible. "Chief Neshoba, Mrs. Neshoba." Cooper's acknowledgement of her title was grudging but present. "We come with news and an offer." "Speak," Neshoba commanded. "There's talk in Washington. The Army wants this land. They're going to force all Apache onto reservations by next winter." "San Carlos, most likely." Cooper spat into the dirt. "It's a death sentence, and everyone knows it. Then we fight. You'll lose. I've seen the troop numbers being assembled. Hundreds of cavalry, artillery. They mean to crush any resistance." Cooper's eyes flicked to Margaret, then back. But there might be another way. Neshoba's hand found Margaret's shoulder, anchoring. "Explain." "South, into Mexico. There are places the Army won't follow. Canyons, mountains, remote. Hard living, but free living." Cooper pulled out a map, spreading it on the ground. "I know the trails. I can guide you. But you'd need to leave within the month, before the Army mobilizes." "Why help us?" Margaret asked, suspicious. Cooper shrugged. "My wife was Navajo, died on the long walk to Bosque Redondo. I swore then I'd never stand by and watch it happen again." He looked at Neshoba with something like respect. "And you're different. You found a way to bridge both worlds. Maybe your children can too." The children. Margaret's hand moved unconsciously to her belly. Neshoba caught the gesture, understanding flickering in his eyes. "We must discuss this in council." The debate lasted 3 days. The elders were divided. Some wanted to fight, die as warriors on their ancestral land rather than flee. Others, especially those with young children, saw the wisdom in survival over pride. Margaret sat in these councils, the only woman permitted, because Neshoba had insisted. She listened more than she spoke, learning the weight of leadership, the impossibility of choices, where every option carried devastating loss. On the 3rd night, Neshoba stood before his people. "I am your chief, But I am also a man who has learned that survival requires adaptation. The old ways are dying. We can die with them, or we can find new ways to preserve what matters most: our people, our culture, our freedom. He looked at Margaret, then at the gathered tribe. My wife carries my child, our child, the next generation. I want them to know our language, our stories, our traditions. But I also want them to know peace, to grow up free, not caged on a reservation. Elder Cloud Speaker rose, his face grave. And if we flee, we become refugees in a foreign land. We become survivors, Margaret said, surprising herself by speaking. All eyes turned to her. I left Ireland because staying meant death. I came here a refugee. I found a home not in a place, but in people who chose to accept me. Home isn't the land beneath our feet. It's the hearts we carry with us. Silence fell, heavy and considering. Finally, Grandmother Nayland stood. The white woman speaks wisdom. We take our home with us, our stories, our children, our spirits. She looked at Neshoba. Lead us, grandson. We follow. One by one, the others agreed. Within 2 weeks, the tribe was ready to move. They took only what could be carried: supplies, weapons, tools, sacred objects. Everything else was left behind or given to the flames so the army couldn't claim it as spoils. The night before they left, Margaret walked through her garden one last time. The corn was knee-high, potatoes flowering. She'd never see this harvest. Neshoba found her there, tears tracking silently down her face. I'm being foolish, she said. It's just plants. It's your work, your hope, planted in this ground. He pulled her close. But you'll plant again, in new soil, and I will help you. Promise? I promise. Together, remember? Together, she echoed. They left Canyon de Chelly at dawn. A line of people and horses moving south, like a river following its course. Margaret looked back once, seeing the ancient cliff dwellings glowing gold in the sunrise, then turned her face forward, toward Mexico, toward uncertainty, toward survival. Neshoba rode beside her, their hands linked between their horses. Behind them, their people. Ahead, their future. And between them, growing stronger each day, the child who would bridge 2 worlds. The journey south was brutal. They traveled at night when possible, hiding during the day in arroyos and caves. Water was scarce, the desert unforgiving. Margaret's pregnancy made every mile harder, though she refused to complain or slow the pace. 2 weeks in, they encountered their first major obstacle: a Mexican militia blocking the mountain pass Cooper had planned to use. They're looking for deserters, Cooper explained after scouting. Revolutionaries fleeing north. They'll assume we're trouble either way. Can we go around? Neshoba asked, studying the terrain. 3 extra days through desert with no water sources. We'd lose people, probably the children and elders first. Margaret watched Neshoba's face harden with decision. Then we go through. They outnumber us 2 to 1. Then we don't fight. We negotiate. Neshoba looked at Margaret. You and I, together. We speak to them as a chief and his wife, seeking peaceful passage. It was insane. It might work. They rode in at dawn, white flag raised, just the 2 of them. The Mexican captain who received them was young, ambitious, suspicious. He looked at Neshoba with barely concealed contempt. Apache, he spat. We have no love for savages here either. Then we have something in common with your American neighbors, Margaret said coolly in Spanish, a language she'd learned from missionary days and had been secretly practicing with Cooper. They don't love us either. which is why we're leaving. The captain's eyes narrowed. You speak Spanish well for a white woman. I speak 3 languages well. I'm an educated woman married to a chief. We're not raiders or revolutionaries. We're refugees seeking to build a life in peace. For a price, perhaps passage could be arranged. Neshoba bristled, but Margaret squeezed his hand. What price? You have weapons, horses. Give us half. You may pass. A quarter, Margaret countered. We need the rest for survival and hunting. Half, or turn back. Neshoba's grip on his rifle tightened. Margaret could feel the violence coiling in him. Ready to explode, she turned to him, speaking low in English. We can survive with less. We can't survive a battle that kills our children. He's stealing from us. Showing weakness invites more predators. He's showing mercy by not attacking outright. Take the compromise. Build our strength elsewhere. The calculation in Neshoba's eyes was painful to watch. Pride warring with pragmatism, warrior instinct against leadership responsibility. Finally, he nodded. A quarter, he said to the captain in Spanish that Margaret had taught him. And you guarantee safe passage through all territory you control. The captain considered, then agreed. They made the trade. 10 horses, several rifles, some supplies. It hurt, but the tribe moved through the pass unmolested. I hate it, Neshoba said that night as they camped in the mountains beyond, paying tribute like we're weak. You're not weak. You're wise. There's a difference. Margaret sat beside him, her growing belly making the ground uncomfortable. My father used to say the strongest man is the one who knows when not to fight. Your father was a missionary who believed in turning the other cheek, and he survived in places where warriors died. Sometimes survival is its own form of victory. Neshoba pulled her close, his hand on her belly where their child kicked and rolled. This child is making you even more stubborn. This child is making me think about futures instead of just surviving today. The baby kicked particularly hard, and Neshoba laughed, a sound Margaret heard too rarely. Strong, like their mother. Like their father, she corrected. They reached Cooper's promised location 3 weeks later, a hidden valley in the Sierra Madre, accessible only through a narrow canyon easily defended. A stream ran year-round, deer were plentiful, and caves offered shelter until they could build permanent structures. It was beautiful and remote and nothing like Canyon de Chelly. The tribe set to work immediately. Wickiups rose on the valley floor. Margaret started a new garden, though her swollen belly made bending difficult. Neshoba organized hunting parties and security rotations. Slowly, carefully, they built a new home. Margaret was 7 months along when the fever hit. It started with the children, 3 falling ill within days. Grandmother Naylan recognized it immediately. Scarlet fever, likely picked up during their last supply run to a Mexican village. Isolate them, she ordered. No one else goes near. But diseases didn't respect quarantine. Within a week, 5 more were sick. Within 2 weeks, the first child died. Margaret threw herself into nursing the sick, despite Neshoba's protests. She'd survived cholera before. Maybe she had immunity. She boiled water, made poultices from herbs Grandmother Naylan identified, held feverish children while they cried for mothers who couldn't come near. On the 15th day, Margaret collapsed. She woke in her own wickiup, Grandmother Naylan pressing a cool cloth to her forehead. Neshoba sat beside her, his face carved from stone, eyes red-rimmed. The baby? Her hand flew to her belly, still moving, still strong. Grandmother Nalen's voice was gentle. But you have the fever. You must rest. The others are being cared for. You cannot help anyone if you die. The old woman fixed her with a stern look. You are Chief's wife. The people need you alive. The fever took her under in waves. She dreamed of Canyon de Shelley, of Ireland, of fires and floods and red rock turning to green hills. Through it all, Neshoba's presence anchored her, his voice reading from the Bible her mother had given her, singing Apache prayers, whispering promises and threats. "Don't you dare leave me," he said once when he thought she was unconscious. "I waited 10 winters for you. You don't get to quit now." On the 5th day, the fever broke. Margaret woke clear-headed, weak as a newborn, but alive. The baby ticked beneath her hand, and she sobbed with relief. Neshoba found her crying and gathered her carefully into his arms. "You scared me. Again." Seems they held a ceremony for the dead, planting saplings to mark where their ashes were buried. Margaret stood with Neshoba, her hand on her belly, thinking about fragility and resilience, death and life intertwined. "We name them after the lost ones," she said softly. "When the baby comes, we carry them forward." Neshoba looked at her with such love it hurt. "You are a better person than I deserve." "You're exactly what I deserve, what we both deserve, each other." 2 months later, on a night when the full moon turned the valley silver, Margaret's water broke. The labor was long and hard. Grandmother Nalen and 3 other women attended her, while Neshoba paced outside like a caged wolf. Margaret could hear him wearing a path in the earth, could hear him praying in Apache and English, making bargains with every god he could name. When the pain became unbearable, she screamed. Neshoba burst through the entrance, wild-eyed, and Grandmother Nalen didn't even try to stop him. "I'm here," he said, taking Margaret's hand, letting her grip crush his fingers. "I'm here. Together." "Together," she gasped, and pushed. Their daughter entered the world, howling, red-faced and furious. She had Margaret's red hair and Neshoba's dark eyes, and she was perfect. "Ayana," Neshoba said, tears streaming unashamed down his face. "Eternal blossom, named for little flower who died in the fever." Margaret held their daughter, exhausted and exultant. "Ayana Nalen Neshoba, for the grandmother who saved us all." Grandmother Nalen, tough and weathered and unsentimental, wiped her own eyes. "The spirits are pleased. This child will bring our people forward." Neshoba kissed Margaret's forehead, then their daughters. 10 winters I waited for you, and you've given me eternity." Outside, the tribe celebrated. Inside the wickiup, 3 generations held each other. Grandmother, daughter, granddaughter, while the man who'd waited 10 winters kept watch, his heart finally whole. The next morning, Margaret woke to find Neshoba sitting cross-legged beside their bedroll, Ayana sleeping on his bare chest. He was teaching her Apache in whispers, telling her the stories of their people, of her people. "She can't understand yet," Margaret said softly. "She can hear. She'll remember, somewhere deep. And when she's old enough, I'll teach her everything. Apache wisdom, Irish stubbornness, how to bridge worlds." He looked up, and Margaret saw their future reflected in his eyes. "I'll teach her about the woman who fell into my life like a gift from the spirits. The woman I waited 10 winters to find. The woman who made waiting worthwhile." Margaret joined them, the 3 of them together in the morning light. Outside, the valley was waking. Their people, their home, their future. It wasn't what any of them had expected. It was better, because they'd built it together. And together, They built it. Together. They'd keep building it, one day at a time, until Ayana had children of her own to tell these stories to. Stories of the Apache chief and the Irish refugee, of 10 winters of waiting, of love that bridged 2 worlds and created something entirely new, something worth every hardship, every loss, every mile traveled, something called home. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're enjoying this tale from. Are you listening at home, during your commute, or perhaps while working? Please subscribe to the From Wild West channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of Margit and Nashoba's journey? Your feedback means the world to us.